Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Let's get ready to rumble!
And that's right, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Best Seat in the House podcast. I'm your host, Rob Cramer, alongside, as always, my co-host, Daniel Bobo Kurlan. And Dan, how you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing good. I'm just like, I might be a little bit voice shot because I went nuts after that Mets win that walk-off RBI by Eduardo Escobar. I mean, the guy said when he was, I recall earlier in the season when they're during a post-game interview after he had a bad game, he said he had said that he was almost positive. I don't remember exactly word for word what he said, but he said he hopes that he's able to give the fans to make up for this and give the fans something to cheer about. Well, Eduardo Escobar, you did exactly what you hoped you would get to do during the season, and in a big way, in such a big spot during the stretch, during that big playoff push. And now it's on to Atlanta this weekend. A heavyweight fight. I mean, I'm gonna be at the edge of my seat. I hope the weather. I hope they'll be able to get the games in somehow. They'll and whatever they need to do to get the game in, hopefully on time, no delays. Don't wimp out on this, Atlanta, because you don't want to face the Grom. Suck it up. Heavyweight fight. Best against the best. The fans want it. I think make Robert Manfred for the best interest of baseball. Don't make sure this game ahead happens on time, even if you need to move it to a neutral site, because this game needs to happen. And I'm pumped for that game on Friday, without a doubt. I'll be at home. I'll be watching that. I'll be eating some pizza.
Yeah, it's this series coming up, man. It's going to be, obviously gigantic, but there would have been an even more bigger level of panic heading into this series had the Mets not come back and won this game tonight. Because before we move on to Atlanta, let's look at the game tonight that you attended at Citi Field, where obviously the night before they lost the game to the Marlins. Just a really tough loss for them to take. Carlos Carrasco once again didn't look good. The only thing they got offensively was a 3-run homer from Pete Alonso. Lost the game. Okay, you move on. Taijuan Walker comes out tonight. Didn't look that great. Put the Mets in a 4-0 hole, even though, 3 of those runs were from him. The fourth one came off Seth Lugo, who also allowed the third run to score, but it was charged to Taijuan Walker. So they put themselves in a 4-0 hole. They come back, they dig themselves out, and all by one man. You mentioned him, Eduardo Escobar, the guy who, what a perfect quote that you pointed out there, Dan, about how he wanted to give the fans a reason to cheer, and how, he knew that he hadn't performed up to, not only his potential, but what he was getting paid for. The Mets went out and he was a pretty big acquisition for them at third base. And, he's paying off big time this September. He's had 25 plus RBIs. He's hitting 300. He's got 6 or 7 home runs this month. He has been perfect and if you look at his numbers for the full season, they're not looking too bad now, right?
Not looking too bad. I knew he'd kind of even out and get to where he hopes to be. I knew he wasn't going to be in such a slump for long, and it's worked out. And during that stretch run, they're gonna get it done when it really counts. And man, that ballpark, the stadium was, I was just rocking. Like, I was I was like, I near my voice is a little shot as you can hear right now.
Yeah, I mean, and it's understandable, man, because that's a big game. And it's a big swing in the standings because luckily for us, the Braves weren't able to win tonight in DC as the Nationals walked them off also in extra innings in the 10th. So, just a big swing in the standings where the Mets kind of stumbled last night and blew their 1 game lead. But luckily, the Braves stumbled tonight and the Mets get it right back. And heading into this big series in Atlanta right now, it was really looking like the Mets were going to have to, you know, at least take 2 out of 3 and probably sweep. If they were behind a game, I mean, there was a point tonight where it looked like the Mets might be going into Atlanta behind a game, and luckily, it just didn't work out that way. The Mets regained their 1 game lead, and head into this series in Atlanta with a much better, statistically at least, chance of coming out with the division title because now they have this 1 game lead, and not to mention they lead the season series 9-7. So with only 3 games remaining, if the Mets win one of these final 3 games against the Braves, then they take the season series and thus get the tiebreaker. So it makes the series even bigger. One thing I did want to ask you tonight, Dan, because obviously there was just around 30,000 people there. There have been a lot of people talking about the attendance in September for the Mets. And what are your thoughts on that, man? Why do you think that attendance really hasn't been too great for the Mets this September?
Sure, I know the weekends they seem to have gotten a lot larger crowds. Maybe it may have been a weekday night for all I know, but once it gets closer, especially these last 3 games, I'm expecting there's going to be a large crowd, especially after we've to hopefully make quick work against Atlanta.
Yeah, no, I definitely understand what you're saying there, but the thing that I think about is that it's also got a lot to do with the teams they're playing. Like, sure, I know that you know, the fans are pumped up and everything, but just like you said, are really 40,000 people going to show up on a weeknight to see the Mets play, the Nationals? Are they going to show up to see the Mets play the Pirates like that, on the weekend for sure? And they've been there, like you said, they've had 35,000 plus 40,000, a couple of times this month, on the weekends and everything. But it's just been different during the week. And I think it's the quality of the opponent too. I think if the Mets had been playing a midweek series against the Braves, like let's say a 4 game series against the Braves in the middle of the week, I think there would have been a much better showing in attendance than for the Pirates, right?
Yeah, plus that I know for sure when DeGrom's pitching, regardless of opponent, the stadium is gonna be packed. So that
True.
that I know for sure. And I also know, of course, if if it turns out how we hope we do during this weekend series, I know for sure the stadium's gonna be packed for these last 3 games, especially depending how it works out. It could be that the series where the clincher happens.
That's
But
true.
I am gonna be at the Monday and the Wednesday game.
Yeah, and there is a chance actually that the Mets clinch a playoff berth at one of those games. Just like you said, or not a playoff berth, I'm sorry, but the division title at one of those games, which would be the first time the Mets have clinched anything actually at Citi Field. They've all of their clinching when they clinched, on the road in Cincinnati. Um,
And then the Bulls playoff series, we clinched. I think even of course when we clinched the first that wild card in 2016, it was on the road in Philly, which by the way, yours
yeah.
truly present.
Oh yeah, I do. You're right. You were at that game.
I can tell you confirm that the Met fans took over Broad Street that day.
And the Phillies are sputtering right now too a little bit. They lost again tonight. So the Phillies are only up on Milwaukee by a half game. So things are getting real tight for that final spot in the wild card. But just to I do want to backstep for a second because you did mention Jacob DeGrom. Now, the news came out today that the Mets are shuffling their rotation a little bit for this weekend, where earlier this week they had originally scheduled Bassett to pitch on Friday, Scherzer pitch on Saturday, and no, I'm sorry, it would be Bassett on Friday, DeGrom on Saturday, and Scherzer on Sunday night. But apparently now Buck Showalter announced tonight after the game that they're shuffling the rotation. Jacob DeGrom is going to pitch on Friday in Atlanta, and then you're going to have Scherzer on Saturday, and Bassett is going to pitch the Sunday night game now. So, a little shuffling of the deck by the Mets. Um, back to Grom. What do you like? What's your confidence level with Jacob DeGrom right now? Because some people are a little nervous.
You know what it is? It's just some people, whenever they see the greats, I'm pretty sure people got maybe felt like this even when back in Mike when Michael Jordan was in his prime. I'm sure people overreacted when he had a bad game also. I'm not sure how much they overreacted because I don't know how how fans react in Chicago. I don't know if they react the same way during these things when players struggle like they do in New York, but I'm guessing people were shocked a little bit, maybe on a day during the time. I'm talking about during the time when Jordan was in the Bulls, when he was in his prime, of course. That when he had maybe if he had a struggle, had a bad game. So people got to remember every so often, even the greats have had a bad game. So calm down. Even though it's a little bit difficult to calm down for a Mets fan. I mean, you've seen that me calm. I'm a Mets fan.
Yep.
Uh,
Very true.
the greats after, especially when they've had bad games, they usually bounce back in a big way, right? The
Hmm.
great was he seemed like he handled it well, having a bad game. I feel like the Grom's always had this demeanor that I really feel like I don't think he'll have a problem wanting to resign if he's given the offer that if Steve Cohen opens up that checkbook, I feel like will take he'll take the money because I just feel like he knows how to handle this. He's
Mm.
old New York. He seemed to have that demeanor from day one because he just got his debut was in a big spot, a big rivalry game. I mean, against the Yankees, one
Hmm.
of the biggest regional rivalries.
Yeah, I do.
Seem to have that. He had an outstanding debut, except for the aside from the no decision part.
True. And the thing about DeGrom too is, we can worry about whether he's gonna sign or re-sign or whatever. We can worry about that a little bit later. But like right now, there have been moments where I've been concerned with DeGrom. I mean, um, I don't know if you saw a stat. There was a stat that the 18th batter of the game, which normally, you'd hit some point around the sixth inning, um, is just killing DeGrom this year. The 18th batter that he faces is like 7 for 11 or something like that, with 4 home runs, and just it's a you know I used to take offense when people called DeGrom a 6 inning pitcher because from 2018, 2019, and when he was healthy last year, and even 2020, that wasn't the case. You could look down the list and see how many times DeGrom hit 7, 8 innings. Obviously nobody goes nine today, really. Um, there have been plenty of times where DeGrom would be going 7, 8 innings consistently. So I took offense to that, but I worry if now with these injuries that he's had, maybe his effectiveness is starting to wane after the fifth or sixth inning. What do you think of that? Do you think that this is maybe him just trying to get back into things, or
Yeah, yeah. I feel that's what it is because of how long it was since he had pitched in like a high leverage spot. I feel he's still trying to get he's getting there, but he's still kind of trying to get there. But I feel it's probably he probably returned at the right time. That's gonna give him a little enough to hopefully be ready for the playoffs and things. So I just feel he's maybe at a different stage in his. I feel like sometimes some players they start getting going. Yeah, and you got to remember, DeGrom pitched his first game at 22. A lot of others, so he's still getting in that rhythm.
yeah,
Probably.
yeah, no, you're definitely not wrong about that, man. I mean, he's still realistically, like, you mentioned, if we're talking about from the beginning of the season, this is kind of like late May for Jacob DeGrom right now, maybe like early June. So he'd still be, at the beginning in the early stages of the season anyway. So that it's really going to come down to um, if he's going to be able to straighten himself out for the playoffs. I mean, let's be honest. The last two starts that DeGrom had, um, it's been very concerning how he's blown the lead. I mean, the Mets gave DeGrom a 3-0 lead against the Pirates. His last batter faced, he has a game tying 3-run home run to O'Neill Cruz. You
Yeah,
know,
that game, I feel maybe they left him in a little too long because it looked like he had thrown a lot of pitches that game.
I agree. And I was very, very surprised that Buck left him in to face Cruz there. And Buck's managing is something that we will discuss in a second too, because Buck's managing over the last month is really starting to worry me. But when you look at DeGrom, then the start after that, the Mets gave him another 3-0 lead against the A's this time, and DeGrom got hit worse than I've seen him get hit in 5 years. The last time Jacob DeGrom had to start that bad was June of 2017 against the Texas Rangers in Texas. So it was a monumental thing that DeGrom uh, got hit around that day, the way he did. It was very concerning. He got lit up, barely made it out of the fourth inning, could not locate anything. And you know what? I'll give DeGrom the benefit of the doubt. Like you said, the best have their bad days. But now on Friday night, we really have to see classic DeGrom. 7 innings, none or maybe one run. He has to be Cy Young candidate Jacob DeGrom because the Mets really need him. This this series is the season. The season's on the line. Because if you ask me, and I guess I'll ask you now too. If you ask me, I think the Mets really need to win the division if we're going to talk about actually winning the World Series because the wild card spot that either the Mets or Braves are going to have is going to be a very, very difficult road to the playoffs. And talking about going to the West Coast, playing the Padres and the Dodgers. If you get through the Padres, that's going to be a very, very tough road. Facing the Cardinals and the Phillies or whoever it's going to be on our side is going to be much easier if you win the division. So, like I said, I think the Mets are going to have to win the division to have a serious shot at the World Series, or at least a much better shot. Well, what do you think about that, Dan?
I feel like the Mets have shown that they've been able to rise to the top when they're facing the the tough competition. I feel there seems to be this thing that about them, but I still feel it will be early. It'll be an easier chance if we win a division. Also, bear in mind that if we do get a wild card, that wild card series will be at home.
True. That is very true, and that's definitely a big thing. But you're still going to end up going out west to face the Dodgers either way.
I feel exactly. So hopefully we get this done and we'll much easier road in the playoffs and hope and plus especially the fact that we'll have a couple of off days if we win the division. I mean,
Yeah, no, you're definitely right. And those off days are going to be big, especially with Starlin Marte looking like he's not going to be back anytime soon.
yeah, I feel like Sterling Marte's pushing it maybe the beginning of the playoffs, if anything.
Yeah, that's very surprising because the Mets delayed putting him on the IL and acted like that they were only doing so for precautionary reasons. And now we're looking at 3+ weeks of him being gone. And boy, you just hope that he can at least, like, even if it's not going to be this weekend in Atlanta, which it looks like it's not going to be, at least if he can make it back for one or two of those Washington games just to get a couple of at bats under his belt going into the playoffs. But but they're I'm sorry, Dan, what were you gonna say?
I just know finger injuries are a little bit difficult to come back. It's a little. Uh, I've even seen player. I even saw Carlos Delgado's career end with a.
Yeah, no, that's very true. And he said I believe it was either today or yesterday that he still couldn't grip a bat or throw a ball. So if he can't do that, he's not much use to us right now. So he's just got to get healthy, and let's just hope he heals quick from this point on because it's been a while right now. But luckily, the Mets have still been trucking through. And but there is one thing too that concerns me, and I've mentioned this on the show over the last month. I have not been a fan of a lot of the times or a lot of the way that um, Buck Showalter has used Edwin Diaz. I think there have been a lot of times where there've been close games and they're down by one, and he brings in a guy like Joely Rodriguez or Michael Givens or some of these other guys that have just been giving it up. Um, Diaz definitely should have been in more games. He just went through a stretch where in like 20 days he appeared in 4 games. Ridiculous.
Exactly, and I feel they kind of. I feel they may have. I'm surprised. I'm lucky that he hasn't had too much rust, but they maybe should have brought him even in a big game, even blowout. They should have brought him in, and I can
Yep.
tell you, Buck Showalter, if there's a situation where we're 1 win away from clinching the division, regardless of the lead, you pretty much want Edwin Diaz to nail this down already, because
No doubt about it.
for anyone pitching that bottom of the to nail down, regardless of how big that lead is. Just those last 3 outs are a challenge, and it's still a big spot, high leverage spot. So bring
Yeah.
in Ed Trumpets. By the way, Atlanta, don't steal our song. That Timmy Trumpet song that belongs to Edwin only.
That's true. I mean, come on, Contreras. Stop playing that crap. Everybody knows that's the Mets song. Even Timmy Trumpet said so. But, Dan, there was another thing that I wanted to bring up too. I mean, at the game tonight, because I noticed this when I was sitting home watching the game. I'm wondering if you were thinking the same thing while you were there. Um, another decision by Buck that I didn't like was Taiwan Walker coming out and starting the sixth inning. I did not understand at all why Walker came out and started that inning, especially when he had such a hard time getting through the fifth. Then you come out and you try to squeeze a couple more outs out of him, and he walks the first batter that he faces. Now, that was, nerve wracking enough. Then De La Cruz is coming up, who already hit an opposite field 2-run home run off of him, and he actually let him face him. Uh, I was shocked, Dan, that even happened. I couldn't believe that with Seth, Lugo warming up in the pen, that he even let him face De La Cruz, much less start the inning. What were you thinking?
Thing I like. Yeah, I feel like maybe Edwin. I feel like the Bucks should have gone to the bullpen at that point. I mean, he. I mean, we he was. I feel like Taiwan Walker, we were able to get all we could that night. All right, he probably wasn't really his best, but it was still kept us in the game at least.
Yeah, he did.
Probably looked like it was going to be a five and fly night for Walker.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that third run, I don't even blame Walker because he shouldn't have been out there. That third run, in my opinion, is squarely on Buck. And but if we're gonna knock him too, I do want to give Buck a little credit. Oh, what were you saying, Dan?
Uh, One of Buck's better managing decisions. Up there with the time he actually agreed to that suggestion from the assi- from the assistant to the traveling secretary. We all remember how that turned out. He actually that suggestion that he made with the uniform material.
Yeah, I agree. That was just as bad a decision that he made tonight. But you know what? If we're gonna knock Buck though, let's give him a little credit though, because I was very happy to see when he made the lineup tonight that he didn't start Darren Ruff. Because I thought that with a lefty on the mound, that he was definitely gonna start Ruff. And luckily he didn't. Luckily he started Vientos. And Vientos had a couple of good at bats. I've liked what I've seen out of Vientos. What do you think?
I think so too. I feel like Vientos needed to get at bats in there. I mean, the guy was hitting it, and I think he kind of like when he got promoted to AAA, he was kind of a little slow. But eventually, once he got the hang of the pitching that he was going to be facing at AAA, which he got going big time, and I feel the same thing is gonna happen in the majors once Vientos has gotten adjusted to the level of competition he's facing in the major. It's on, and we we could have a very key player that not just this year but even beyond. And it's 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 just gonna be a monster lineup, especially probably most likely next at some point next year. We're gonna see once Alvarez gets called up, who's had a monster season in AAA. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
right.
the next couple of years as a Met fan. It's gonna be very exciting.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. Because I mean, just like you said too, obviously Alvarez is the guy that steals all the headlines, but also don't forget about Brett Beatty, who's definitely going to be on the scene over the next couple of years, and also like we said, Vientos too. So those are three good young guys.
Definitely hope. I hope Beatty recovers from that little finger injury. That was like a real bummer because that's always a challenge for a ball player to get that injury, and the recovery's like it's just a lot of fight to recover from that injury. But kudos to these players who put up that fight to and pull it off and get back going and somehow not miss a beat. He's I bet these athletes I bet they're incredible human beings to be able to pull that off.
Very true.
Also, have to give credit to everybody who I've seen pulling off the fight, especially when they've gotten maybe if I meant have had injuries and stuff. I mean, I feel like even though my mother still sometimes, you know, he's and stuff, and unfortunately, when the COVID lockdown, when they closed down the PT places, that kind of maybe because of some dumb decision deeming those services not essential, helping my that maybe hold a little bit. My mother trying to hopefully hopefully recover and recover you know the recovery process, which sometimes maybe takes years, is trying to make sure that they'll hold up that it's a fight regardless if an athlete or not. I've been having injuries.
Yeah.
I, there's plenty of people. I mean, even at my job, I know some people who've gotten hurt and stuff. So
Oh
I mean,
yeah. And one guy that I do want to give credit to, for coming back from an injury, you're right too, talking about the Mets, was Drew Smith. Let's give him credit, man. That guy came into the game tonight in the 10th with the runner on second. And, to be honest, when he came in, and I do like Drew Smith, but he's been a little up and down lately. The guy got out of it 1, 2, 3, stranded that runner. I mean, you got to give him credit for that, right?
I gotta give him credit for that. All right. I mean, I feel like he's the one that's gonna be bounced back. I mean, I just like it's gonna be it's gonna be rising to that challenge. I feel like it's gonna be big. I mean, cue that going to this game. Might as well cue that music from the Karate song. All right, little two shot sing it, but you if you've watched the Karate Kid before, you know the song, right?
Exactly. Exactly. So hey, man, I mean now, just like you mentioned, the Karate Kid song. That's what it's coming down to for for this weekend, man. You're the best around. This is what it's going to come down to. It's a just like you mentioned earlier too. It's a heavyweight fight now. 3 rounds, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and whoever comes out on top is probably going to be division champ.
Yep, exactly. Strike first, strike hard. I forget what it is. It's this. I think it's a strike fast, strike hard, no mercy.
Cobra Kai. I love it. This one I did want to start with the Yankees real quick because they did clinch the AL East last night. So good job to the Yankees. They've had a really strong season. Um, Lucky for them because the Mets, who have a better record than the Yankees, still haven't clinched our division. So, there's that. But the Yankees have had a very good division, and a very good year. No doubt about it. The AL East has been very strong. And so tip of the cap to the Yankees for finishing it off. And then obviously the other big news about the Yankees is Aaron Judge hitting 61 tonight, ties the Yankee team record, ties the AL record because the other guys that went crazy all were in the National League with Bonds, Sosa, and McGuire, all playing for the Cardinals, Giants, and Cubs. So he tied the American League record tonight, Dan. What do you think about that?
Not bad. He tied, and he's officially holds the clean record. I think I remember someone said that called it a clean record. I think Billy Crystal called it the clean record. I
Yeah,
re-
you're right about that, man. 100%.
that is the clean record, but and by the way, I did find out. I found out that that home run happened. I think somewhere in between innings. I just looked to check to see if it happened, and it did. And I took a look at the video quick of it, the footage of it, and just went back to watching the Mets game and take take taking glances at my phone to make sure the Braves were losing. Braves had lost seconds before that walk off happened. If I remember King, because I remember like shortly after I saw that, and I closed that screen on my phone, the MLB app, and when and I just went nuts.
Yeah,
That was a good win. Hopefully, we still carry that mojo into the into the weekend.
yeah, with the Braves. But sticking with the Yankees now, though, they did do something a little interesting tonight. Judge obviously hit that big bomb and everything. But did you see that? Because the rest of the games for the season don't really matter. That the Yankees made Anthony Rizzo the co-manager for tonight's game with Aaron Boone, like with Boone's approval, and he was the co-manager for tonight's game. And according to Aaron Boone, was included in decision making.
Yeah, so I don't mind that when there's like not much that they've already clinched they've gotten as high as a seed as they could. So I would, it was, but and I only just heard about this right now because I didn't get a chance to catch up with everything because
Mhm.
I think I remember when I was as soon as I got off as soon as I got off the subway and I boarded that bus the rest of the way home. I was watching maybe some of the I was watching like the little highlights from the Met game. I wanted to see what the SNY call was like. Also love how the SNY shows the Gary Cohen cam when the and, and to I don't know if to a lesser degree, but I also see Yes Networks, but or I meant the Yank I meant the 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 fan is doing a similar thing with John Sterling. So I
Oh, are
kind
they
of
doing with Sterling too?
yeah they do it with Sterling because I see some Yankee fans retweet it. So I have seen that they do that, and thanks to freaking Anthony Cumia and Jim Norton, I freaking laugh. Speak, speaking of Yankees announcers, I gotta tell you this little funny story. When I went to Boston, one time I had been to Boston, right? Me and my sister, right? It was like nothing really. We were just buying some. We went to a liquor store to get some stuff, right? So we're asking if I forgot what it was saying somewhere my sister wanted, right? This woman, she sounded like the best way to describe that her voice. She sounded like Susan Waldman, and the whole time I'm holding my breath, trying not to laugh, to humiliate myself and upset the woman at the liquor store to the point that my sister can't purchase. Maybe I don't want to upset the woman in the liquor store, right?
Yeah,
And
of course.
I'm in a store, right? As I'm just grabbing whatever I'm getting for myself, you know what I mean, right? And as soon as I, me and my sister walk out of the liquor store, we're just remember that episode of Beeps and Butthead No Laughing?
Yes.
You remember that? That's what it. That's what me and my sister looked like when we walked out of that liquor store. This is funny, like the Boston accent. Like she had a kind of Boston accent. I classify. There's like different variations of the Boston accent for what I've seen, and as the Susan Waldman that woman at the liquor store had, and we're just dying laughing as soon as we walk out of that liquor store, and that's what it looked like. That episode of Beeps and Butthead when we walked out of that liquor
Were you
store.
just dying laughing as soon as you walk out that door?
They're like, I'm finally like just a sigh of relief.
Yeah, yeah.
And also laughing because she noticed, she saw the look on my face that I'm trying not to laugh. Like
Uh,
she knew laughing at this woman's
yeah.
voice.
And you can tell Susan Waldman's voice. It's the worst voice in sports.
That's what that woman at the liquor store sounded. That's what her voice sounded like. The best way to describe.
Terrible, terrible. Oh man.
We're just bragging. We're just we're, it was just so funny. Yeah, that, but it's just although I still have to give it. I gotta say hi to some friends in Boston because I every time I've been to Boston, they're good people. My friends out there,
Hmm.
believe me. So some good friends of mine have Boston accents. Just to remind you.
Very true. Very true. And speaking of accents, let's give a shout out to one of our fans that you met at the game tonight, right? How about Baron?
Yep. But Baron, I found he just saw he was sitting not far from where I'm sitting, so he got from coming all the way from down under. He got to see a bit of taste of what baseball is like in the Big Apple, and got to see crazy Mets fan Bobo.
Watching a Mets game with Bobo, it's like going to the Statue of Liberty. It's a New York tradition.
exactly. He got to see what that's like. Right, bro. Great. One day I could return the favor and visit, and maybe pay him a visit out there one day. So hopefully someday the airline prices go down because it's just gotten way too high that I couldn't even afford going to. I couldn't even afford taking a flight this weekend to Atlanta to attend the Atlanta series, which, by the way, would have been a nightmare because of the weather.
Yeah, very true, man. I mean, luckily, with this weather, you never know with down there. Let's just hope they get those games in, period. So let's wrap up with the with football real quick, Dan. What did you see out of the Giants this week? I mean, they ended up dropping the game, tough fashion, to the Cowboys on Monday night. But I don't think the, the Cowboys. A lot of people didn't give Cooper Rush and the Cowboys defense enough credit, and the Giants just didn't come out on top. What did you think about that game?
Also, I feel maybe there was a lot of bad referee. Also, I really feel like there was too many drop passes that could have made a big difference. And also, thing that really hits really bad is the Sterling Shepard out for the season. Oh, I was like, I, I, I'm surprised I didn't smash my remote after that
Yeah,
game. What wasn't really. I I wasn't really happy after that one, and hopefully we bounce back on that one ne- next week. But that was a frustrating game,
yeah.
and
You get the Bears next week.
I have to say, and I say one thing that the MetLife Stadium turf on the Shizer list.
Well, one thing I will say about that game too against the Cowboys is first off, you really have to give the Cowboys defense credit because their defense is really, really strong. And also, I will say on the bright side for the Giants that Daniel Jones played a pretty decent game. He had that one interception, but that interception wasn't really even his fault because his receiver fell down. So that was, I'd say that was a pretty clean game from Daniel Jones. So if you want to take something good out of it, I think that's something that you could build upon.
Yep, build upon that, and like I said, also that turf in MetLife Stadium might be on the Shizer list about it. Maybe whoever's in charge of the stadium, maybe during the off season, a switch to natural grass.
Yeah,
Maybe
that turf has always been crap. You're right.
got the money and resources to maintain it. So get some. You might have to switch to natural. Hopefully they don't screw it up like the last time they had natural grass in the Meadowlands. I remember I remember one time they did that and it kind of I don't know what happened was maybe that the field sometimes they had a hard time keeping the field in shape to the point that they had to switch to this field turf that's similar to the stadium that's similar to surf similar to the surface that you see used in the current home of the Giants. They had originally started using it at the last couple of years of Giant State. So hopefully they maybe realize maybe yeah might be a little bit more difficult to maintain, but maybe natural grass. And besides, you'll also be able to hire a grounds crew, and there'll be some work for some people. Maybe you've helped out the economy a little bit by employing that'll be able to put food on the table because they'll be working that they'll be grounds at me.
Yeah, very true, man. Very true. And so they get the Bears next week. and we'll see where it goes from there. They're in pretty good position. They did a good job so far. They won two out of the three games, so that they're where they need to be. You know,
Tell you, the Sunday, it's gonna be a lot for me because the Giants game, and then hopefully it goes up playing the Mets game at night, the Sunday game.
mm-hmm, true.
Probably, and I'm probably gonna watch this one that one Monday, but I'm gonna have the NASCAR race on DVR because I do have the NASCAR on DVD, which stuff like that, and I'll watch. But I'll probably have to watch that Monday. You have to work, but
Very true. And
worth watching. And it, hopefully you get a Mets win in a Giants same day.
yeah, that's true. And the other team playing that day is my team, the Jets. And I'm just gonna do real quick on them because we're just about out of time here. But the Jets, they ended up losing 27-12 on Sunday. Joe Flacco looked like crap. The rest of the team looked like crap. Garrett Wilson got hurt. Took that shot to the ribs. I don't know if you saw that. That was a little worrying when I saw that. But luckily, he came back to the game. He played pretty good. And now Zach Wilson's back next week, Dan. So the Jets just got to hope that he stays healthy and that they see growth out of him over the next few weeks, right?
Exactly. Hopefully he takes that next step forward. Zach Wilson takes that next step forward because I feel like for the Jets this year might be a building block year. Uh,
Yeah.
that they get have a decent year and carry that momentum into next year.
Yeah. Very true, man. You're right. And I just hope that you know, that they can at least be competitive this year. And it's all going to start this Sunday in Pittsburgh, which is never going to be easy. But luckily for the Jets, TJ Watt is out of the game, and that Pittsburgh defense has only mustered two sacks in the 2 weeks he's been out. So uh, good good break for the Jets, and hopefully they can take advantage of it. Um,
Yep.
yeah, and just to finish up too, we got preseason hockey starting up with the Rangers beating the Islanders and then losing in overtime to Boston. But we will get into more of that next week as we're going to be getting real close to opening night on October 11th. So we'll take a little bit of our time next week and talk a lot of hockey because that's going to be fun. And me and Dan love our hockey. So Dan, before we get out of here, do you have anything that you like to plug?
I definitely gotta plug my Twitter, Bobo 103 NYC, also Bobo 7K on it. Kurlan on YouTube. Also, at the end of this show, of course, you're gonna see a video that looks like something I filmed on my phone because you are gonna see a video I literally filmed on my phone, posted on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. Like I just posted filmed this video like literally as soon as the Mets had won that game, and literally it was just me. Like I just felt after that game, I just felt it would work really good for the show today to have a little reaction to me after the game. So you're gonna see exactly how I reacted post game after the Mets just came ended up successfully pulled off a come from behind win in extra inning. It's pretty much how it's spontaneous. Yeah, my voice is a bit shot during this week's episode of Best in the House.
Yeah, mine too. And that was just from being at home. You're right, buddy. And that was a great win and a great reaction to it. Everybody loves a Bobo Mets instant reaction. So, before we get out of here, what was that, Dan?
You're here, and you're about to see, if you haven't seen it on Twitter, you're about to see it right here. That video.
That's right. And before we get out of here, you can also check my Twitter out at my last name Kramer and Y, and you can also check out the Best Seat in the House Twitter account at bsith_podcast. Also, check us out on Instagram at Best Seat in the House Podcast. So, thanks once again for everybody tuning in. I'm Rob Cramer. This is Daniel Bobo Kurlan. Best Seat in the House Podcast once again. And before we get out of here, we're going to take a look at Bobo at Citi Field. We'll catch you next week.
Mets win, baby! Mets win, baby! We won, baby! We won! We won! First place, bitches! Bring it on, Atlanta! You're next, Atlanta! You're next! We're ready! We're ready to kick your ass!